I have a peculiar hobby. I mean, I guess you could call it a hobby, though it's probably more of a habit of mine. But before I tell you what it is, let me tell you a bit about myself. My name's Jackson. Don't worry about a last name. You don't need one. I'm not famous or anything. So, a last name isn't very important. Anyway, I've always loved doing risky stunts. You know those stunts that can be dangerous and potentially life-threatening. Yeah, those stunts. Ever since I can remember, I've always loved to put my life at risk just to get a cheap thrill out of it. It's probably just a pride thing, but either way, I just could never get enough of them. I was a kid who could throw caution to the wind and partake in most idiotic and pointless stunts just to fuel my ego. Now, of course, I had my fair share of injuries as a child. Broken arms, broken legs, cracked ribs, chipped teeth, pretty much anything that can be broken without being directly life-threatening, I broke it. I was the envy of all the kids at school. Everyone wanted to be cool and do all the stunts that I did, but the adults just looked at me as being totally reckless. One teacher even went as far as to call me a complete and total idiot. I don't care what they thought, as long as I was happy. What they thought of me wasn't a priority of mine. I mean, who cares what they thought anyways, right? I digress. The point of me writing this is actually something that happened to me on that hot summer day in July of 1999. I'd been riding my bike in the street, pulling off some unimpressive wheelies and bunny hops, when my foot got caught in the chain of my bike. I stumbled over, taking my bike with me in the process, only to lock eyes with an oncoming truck. I had screamed, dreading what was about to happen, only to open my eyes to nothing. No truck, no cars, no anything. I was confused, as I was positive that I had just seen the front of a very large black truck. Not only that, but the street was suddenly lifeless. Not a single sign of human life could be seen in any direction of me. This was even more dumbfounding than the truck just vanishing, as the street was one of the busiest in town, especially at that time of day. I got my foot free from the bike chain and I stood up. A stinging pain jolted through my body as I applied pressure to my previously trapped ankle. It wasn't broken, luckily, but it still hurt to walk on for days after the incident. I looked around me, searching everywhere my eyes could reach for something, anything in the surrounding area. It still amazes me to this day how everything just seemed to completely vanish. At first I thought to myself, am I dead? My mind filled with the fear at the thought that I had actually just been hit by a car, and that I was alone simply just because I had died. That thought was short-lived, however, and I could hear the sound of heavy footsteps coming behind me. I turned around and came face to face with what looked to be a man, about mid-30s, approaching me. He was dressed in a fine black suit, and his right hand held a cane. The cane was all black as well, except for the raven atop it, which was a dark purple. My first thought was that he had gone to church and he'd just gotten out, but I suddenly felt stupid for thinking this, as it was Thursday, in the middle of the day. I questioned silently to myself as to why he was wearing an all-black suit in the middle of a hot summer day. It had to be at least 110 degrees outside, and yet this man was dressed in an all-black attire. The man looked young, no more than 33 at the most. His hair was neatly fixed to the side. That was when I noticed his smile. A row of perfectly white teeth flashed a devilish grin in my direction. His teeth seemed to shine from the light of the burning sun. His eyes, however, held no light in them. They were, in a way, dead, devoid of all human life, or any life for that matter. They were frightening, despite the fact that they held nothing within them. They were simply black orbs. Lifeless, soulless black orbs. You really shouldn't be playing so dangerously like that, young man. You can get quite hurt doing stunts like that. Why shouldn't I do stunts? It's fun. Now do understand that I was only 10 at the time of the event, so the child in me prevailed in choosing the words that I should say to this man. Why shouldn't you? Well, my dear boy, there's a very, very good reason as to why you shouldn't be so reckless, he said as his smile widened and his hand made a waving motion. You see, my dear boy, every time you do a stunt that dangerous, you're playing a game of life and death. In addition to that, every time you survive an encounter like that, like what happened with the truck, you're not only playing with death itself, but you're mocking him. I want to show you something. The man snapped his bony fingers. In an instant, we were no longer in my neighborhood street. We were in some sort of Victorian-age hotel room. In it sat a man, or rather several men, all gathered around a large oak table. In one of the men's hands was a Colt pistol. The men were all drunk, so it was hard to understand what they were babbling about. through their slurred speech. But I did pick something up about the game they called Cheating Death. In all reality, it was just Russian roulette, but this game had a bit of a twist to it. Instead of just having one turn with a pistol, each man had two, meaning that you were not only mocking death, but in a way, you were cheating him. Thus the name, Cheating Death. One of the men, who was particularly drunk, shouted out to the heavens, "I don't fear you. I'll never fear you. May all praise me, he who cheated death." The man was clearly confident in his ability to survive the game, but overconfidence is a very dangerous quality for humans to have. The man died on the first shot. Suddenly, we were back in my neighborhood, but it was nighttime. The street was dark, lighted only by whatever lights the people on the block had on their porches. I stared out into the inky darkness of the still and silent night, only to find the man, now shrouded in darkness. His features covered by the night. No matter how much I focused my eyes, I could no longer make out the man's face. With each step I took towards him, he only got further and further away. Just before he vanished from my sight, I heard his voice echo on the very wind itself. "Don't cheat death, or death will cheat you." His voice was now low and menacing. He spoke as though he was foreshadowing some traumatic event or some fulfillment of some ancient prophecy. Of course, in the mind of a young 10-year-old, none of this seemed to be too odd. I was beginning to think that it had all really happened when I woke up in a drenched cold sweat from the intense experience. The next day I was riding my bike on the street, when I got my foot caught in the spokes of the back wheel after unsuccessfully attempting a wheelie. I stumbled into the street and came face to face with a truck heading straight for me. The truck stopped mere inches from my face. The man helped me up and offered me a smile before getting into his car and drove away. Just as he did, he turned to me and revealed his black, soulless eyes. "You should be careful doing stuff like that out here. You're cheating death with that kind of recklessness." You're probably going to hate me for telling you this, but that too was just a dream. About 5 years after the dreams, I was once again at my usual antics with my dangerous stunts. I don't know what compelled me to have this idea of what I thought next, but somehow the idea that I could make a game out of the stunts I was pulling popped into my head. At that point, I had completely forgotten about my dreams from before. I called the game Cheating Death. The objective of the game was to pull off a dangerous stunt, and while doing so, mocking death as you went about your stunt. Nobody joined me, but several came to watch, all of them cheering and yelling things like, "Nobody can stop him, not even death." One day, April 13th, 2004, to be precise, I happened to glance out to my adoring audience of fans, only to find that something was off about one of the people. One boy, who was positioned in the far back of the crowd of people, was looking at me with a look that I can only describe as sympathetic, like he felt pity for me for some bizarre reason. I ignored him and heard the crowd of people yelling, "Jackson cheated death! He beat death!" Well, overconfidence is a very dangerous thing to have. And just as I believed the statement in my head, I lost my balance and crashed into the ground in defeat. I broke 3 bones that day, and the doctors say it was a miracle of God that I'm still alive. I have to agree. Needless to say, I quit my stunt career after. It's now 2015, and I currently can no longer walk. My legs just mysteriously stopped working last year and had to be amputated. Last month, the doctors informed me that I had cancer. They gave me 3 months to live at the most, and well, a month went by, and the doctors tending to me came in my room last night. They told me they have some bad news. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but the treatment hasn't helped to slow the cancer. In fact, it's sped it up somehow. I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have less than a week to live. As they walked out of my room, I saw one of the doctors turn to me and look me dead in the eyes. His eyes were black, soulless orbs. At about midnight, I was awakened by the sound of heavy footsteps outside my room. I heard the door open and close. I didn't need to wonder what would happen next. I never did see his face, but even as the tall, mangled shadow crept towards my hospital bed, I understood who it was. He whispered 3 little words in my ear just before I flatlined. Nobody cheats death. Cheating death is not impossible, but it does come at a hefty price. It's a risky game, and it can only yield failure or death. I recommend you don't go trying to cheat death, but there are some among you that'll still attempt this. I assure you, It's futile. Because nobody cheats death. Nobody cheats me.